Hello and welcome to Spencer's Library. I'm Claudia, and today I want to discuss Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, which is the first book I read this year as part of my 1818 novel project. It's weirdly fitting that this is the first book I read as part of that project because it was actually published on the 1st of January in 1818. This is the story of Victor Frankenstein, a young Swiss scientist who creates life, and that creation then comes back to haunt him throughout the rest of the book. We're all familiar with the pop culture interpretation of Frankenstein, but I think most of us already know that the book plays out quite differently to the films and other adaptations that we may have seen. So I went into this book not exactly expecting, the green monster, the lightning-struck Victorian house and all of that stuff that I have in my head when I think of Frankenstein, but still the novel managed to surprise me quite a lot. The first thing that surprised me is the form. It is technically an epistolary novel because the whole narrative is framed by this letter from a man called Robert Walton who's exploring the Arctic to his sister. However, this framing then kind of gives way to a sort of nested narrative where we see the story from Frankenstein's perspective and then at one point from the monster's perspective as well. So it reads more like a multiple narrator book where each narrator kind of has a bigger chunk of the story to narrate. The part I enjoyed most about the book was the middle part that is narrated by the creature itself, because that is where we just get a really unique perspective on life that we don't get from the human narrators. But before I get into all of that, a brief synopsis. So Victor Frankenstein is a Genoese gentleman who grows up in a very loving family and then moves away to go to university in Germany, where he gets really interested in chemistry and biology, where he ends up creating life. As soon as he sees what he's done, as soon as the creature opens his eyes, Frankenstein gets scared and runs away. When he comes back, the creature's gone, but the creature ends up pursuing him throughout the rest of the book. So Frankenstein first goes back to Switzerland to his family. Then he goes traveling, he travels to England and to Scotland, and the creature's always there and leaves behind him a trail of destruction and murder. The first thing that surprised me about this is how romantic it feels, and I mean capital R romantic. There's a lot of talk about nature, there's a lot of descriptions of the Alps and other beautiful landscapes that our characters go through. You get this contrast between the huge, awe-inspiring natural world and humans who are small and helpless before it. Of course, it also is about human nature and what makes us human, and why what makes us human doesn't necessarily depend just on us, but also on the people around us. So in that sense, the novel also feels very modern. The issues and themes that are explored in it are relevant today as much as they've ever been. And one of the biggest themes, in my opinion, is the issue of choice and control over your own life. So Frankenstein made the choice to create a living being, but that living being did not have control over his own birth, as it were. And that's obviously something that's true to every child and parent. The creature wants to be part of society, but society does not want him to be part of it. Frankenstein deliberately made the creature huge and ugly and monstrous, and it's that monstrosity that stops humans from accepting the creature into their midst. So the creature starts pursuing Frankenstein, who then, while being terrorized by this monster, feels like he has no choice and no control at all over the safety of his own family. It's a really interesting dynamic that the book explores in great detail. What the book doesn't spend much detail on is the actual creation, and that's another thing that surprised me. Going into this book, I thought that the actual creation is going to be a big part of the story, but it wasn't. The creation just happens as part of the exposition of the book, really, and there's not much time wasted on it. So on the issue of choice and control, there's a really striking part where Frankenstein contemplates the issue of consent. the monster has just approached him and asked him to make him a female companion. And he promises to then take the female companion and hide out in the mountains far away from civilization and stop terrorizing people. So Frankenstein first agrees to do that, and then he has second thoughts, and I'm just going to read you those second thoughts. He, that's the creature, had sworn to quit the neighborhood of man and hide himself in deserts, but she had not, and she, who in all probability was to become a thinking and reasoning animal, might refuse to comply with a compact made before her creation. So, while making a female monster, Frankenstein thinks, hang on, what if she has a free will, just like the male version has? She might not want to live and be in a romantic relationship with this monster. She might have other plans, considering that she, like he, is a thinking and reasoning animal. I found that very interesting because I hadn't expected that. I mean, even I didn't think of that at all. While the monster was making that demand to Frankenstein, I thought, well, all right, why not? Give him a companion, make him happy, and make him go away and stop murdering people. And then as Frankenstein discusses this issue about, well, what if she doesn't want to, I kind of had to catch myself and think, oh yeah, free will. It's a thing. And women have choices too. So if you haven't read Frankenstein, don't let me deter you by going into all of these issues and things that are contemplated and discussed, because all of these things are wrapped up in a really compelling narrative, in a plot-driven story with interesting characters, and you want to know how it ends and you want to know what happens next. It's a very approachable classic for a book that's 200 years old. It is very easy to read. To pick up the book, give it a try. It's a very short book as well. It's under 300 pages. It's freely available in ebook form on Amazon and probably in other places as well. I really enjoyed Frankenstein. I ended up giving it 4 stars, and it was a very quick, enjoyable, but also thoughtful read for me. So please let me know what your opinion is of Frankenstein. There are so many things that I haven't even touched at, like, for example, how unlikable is Frankenstein as a person? I mean, he really does not make the best decisions. What is the point of Robert Walton? Why do we get his framing of this narrative? Were you surprised that Frankenstein is Swiss? Because I certainly was. So let me know your thoughts, and thank you for watching. Bye.